Hello, everyone. Again, this is Dan Calloway coming at you, and today I want to talk about a new email client that I've been testing, been working with, and it looks like it's a keeper. And it's called Claws Mail, and I'm running version 3.13.2. I'm on my Black Lab Enterprise Linux system here, and I've got Claws Mail installed, and I'll show you how I installed it. What I did was in Kubuntu 1604 LTS, which is what Black Lab Enterprise Linux is based on, um, there is a package called the Synaptic Package Manager. And let me put in the password and get into it. Opens up this screen here, and this is your package manager for Ubuntu. And like I said, Black Lab Enterprise is based on Kubuntu 1604. Alright, so let me hit the search. And the way I installed Claws Mail is I just did it this way. Searched for Claws Mail with a dash in between Claws and Mail. And go ahead and hit the search. It's going to go out and search for it. It was not originally installed, but it's in the repository, which is how I went about installing it. I just checked the box all the way down. Sometimes it found dependencies and asked me to go ahead and accept that those would be installed as well. But this is the Claws Mail basic package. This is the notifier. Here's the address keeper, a mail archiver plugin, a mail attachment remover plugin, a mail attachment warner plugin. That one, if you have a missing attachment, it warns you that you've mentioned attachment in your email and you don't have one there, so it'll warn you. That's a nice one to have. I've got the BOGO filter installed, the BS filter plugin installed, and the Clam Daemon antivirus program also installed, plugin rather. Don't have it running though. And then here are some of the others that I've installed as well. Anything that was Claws Mail, I went ahead and told Synaptic Package Manager to go ahead and install it. The only thing I didn't install is this library here, developer library for files, because I'm not going to be doing any developing in Claws Mail, just using it. And then when it installed, I went ahead and closed the package manager and then just went out, and it installs it in Ubuntu under, I believe, Internet. Yeah, and so here it is. So let me go ahead and fire it up. Okay, so it needs to be configured. When you first open it up, you'll need to configure your new account. It will come up and walk you through the wizard. I'm not going to show you that part of it because it's self-explanatory. It'll walk you through the wizard. You will need to know the account settings for your account that you want to set up, however. Before you actually enter the wizard, it'll just save you some time. So once you get it all set up and everything, then you can tweak it. And so this is what I've done here. My account is a Data Pioneer account. It's an IMAP4 Internet Mail Application Protocol version 4 account, which means that the mail sits on the server. This is an Outlook account. It sits on the server. It doesn't come down locally on my system unless I tell it to. And so inbox, sent, drafts, trash, archives, junk, all of that is sitting on the server at Outlook in Microsoft. Okay, it's nothing being saved here on my local machine. Even the sent folder is an IMAP folder as well. Okay, and so once you get it up and running, you'll need to theme it out, and you'll need to install the plugins as well, load them. The way to do some of that is you hit the configuration button here, and you can come down to preferences for current account and open that up. And you're going to be presented with this basic screen first. You need to put in your name of your account and the full name, the email address of the user, the IMAP settings for your account. You'll need to do receive. For receiving mail, using the authentication methods appropriate. For sending mail, same as with that. Mine happens to be authenticated. for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, SMTP. So that means my SMTP port is not 25, it's 587. The receiving port is port 943, I believe. For composing, you need to tell it where the signature is, and by default it's in your home directory in a hidden file called signature. You can update that file using Vim or some editor, which is what I did. For SSL purposes, you need to tell it how your account is set up. And then under advanced, here's where you can set the port numbers. Actually, it's 983, not 943. SMTP port 587, and IMAP port, IMAP 4 port 983. Here I've told, checked all of these, and I said put the sent messages for this account in the IMAP Data Pioneer sent folder. Put the queued messages in the IMAP Data Pioneer queue folder. So everything is in a IMAP folder, not locally. You can hit browse and you can do it locally if you like. For those who want to keep their, sent messages local, queue messages local, etc., etc. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and cancel this. You need to apply the settings and click OK if you're setting it up, however. Now let's go back under configuration again, and instead of preferences for current accounts, you can use the create new account for actually setting up a new account if you like. Okay, I have the one which is the IMAP 4 Data Pioneer account. I'm not going to set up a new one, so I'm going to go ahead and cancel this. Let's go ahead and close that out. For configuration again, you can go in and say edit the current account, or you can select preferences, and here you have a whole host of things you can do. This is the settings for mail handling, for receiving. I told it to check mail every 10 minutes and then check for new mail on startup. Then I told it to show received dialog. In other words, if I get a new message, it's going to tell me. I said, no, don't ever do that. Say never. Close received dialog when finished. And then after receiving new mail, go to the inbox so I can start looking at my mail. For sending messages, I told it to save the sent messages, to confirm before sending the queued messages, show the send dialog and warn when subject is empty. And then outgoing encoding, I said it's automatic, recommended. For composing messages, I told it automatic settings for when replying, when forwarding, and for when re-editing. I told it to automatically save a new mail I'm drafting in the draft folder every 50 characters I type. So when I get to the first 50 characters in the email, it's going to save that email automatically in the draft folder, which is really nice. That way it's up to date quite a bit, and saving process doesn't get in the way for me. Every 50 characters is set by default, and it's fine. So the only thing, if I lose a message or if something closes, something crashes, which I haven't had happen yet, that means the oldest of that email will be the last 50 characters I typed in the message. I told the preferences to warn when inserting a file larger than 1,000 kilobytes. So if I insert a file larger than a megabyte, it's going to warn me. And then it's told it to the reply button invokes mailing list reply, forward as attachment, and then keep the original from header when redirecting. So if I redirect a message, keep the original from header. Templates, here I have not set up any templates, but if I want to compose one for reply or for forward, these are the default ones here for reply and forward. For wrapping, I told it all of the options here, and then wrap every 150 characters, which is pretty much almost the width of my screen. Spell checking, I told it to enable spell checker, and then to use the default dictionary that's inherent in Clause Mail. There's a lot of configurability in this application, by the way. I was using Evolution Mail before this, and I think Clause Mail is a lot better for my purposes here. Message view, we've got some text options you can set. You've got an image viewer here for viewing images in your email. You can go out to an external program if you like Gedit or some other editor if you want for editing your mail. Here you can do the display settings. I'm not going to go through all of these. Themes, I will show you. I'm using the Logos 1.0.1 theme. You can set it to other, and there's a lot of them here, okay, which changes the look of your themes for your email. Okay, so you've got toolbars that you can set up, you've got plugins that you can set up, and then you've got other things you can do. All right, so remember to apply the settings before you get out of here if you make any changes, and then click OK. All right, so cancel on that. Let's go back to configuration. And I talked about the plugins, so if you want to work with your plugins, you can come to Configuration Plugins, and that brings up your plugin screen. You can hit the load button and you can load these plugins, and these are the loaded plugins that are currently in force in my ClawsMail application. Fancy HTML viewer, the attach warner, the V calendar, etc., etc. Okay, and there's plenty of these that you can get to. You can go to ClawsMail website. If I click on this button here, it takes me out to the ClawsMail website, and this is where you grab more of your plugins. If you want more themes, you can download more themes here to get more themes for your ClawsMail. Spruce it up whichever way you want it. And these are downloadable, and then you can go back to your configuration and install those. And there's a full community here. There's some projects as well, some features, and some screenshots of ClawsMail if you want to do that. All right, let's go back to ClawsMail now, and let me go ahead and close this. And let me show you that right now I have in my inbox, if I click on it, you'll notice there's nothing showing here, but it says that there are 1,169 messages. Okay, none of them are new, but the total number is 1169, and then I've got a sent folder with 680 emails in it, an archive folder with 198, a junk folder that's empty, and then I have one that's called requires response. I'm going to open that up, and you can see that what I've done here is I've created a folder called requires response. So if I'm reading an email in the inbox, and let me go ahead and turn the view on where you can see that, uncheck the box that says hide red threads, and so that brings up the ones that are currently there. And let's say that I got this email here from this is a test message I did, and I can double click it and bring it up to full screen. All right, and let's say I wanted to read this message later and needed to respond to it. I can do a message, let's see, tool, no, I need to close it, that's what it is. Let me go back and minimize this message. Okay, so this is a preview down here, by the way, and you've got some buttons over here. This one is a message button. This one's a text message, plain text. So if I click that, it converts that email to plain text. And then this one is your HTML formatted. All right, and so if I want to respond to this later, I can simply go ahead and right-click on the message and tell it to move that message to the requires response folder. All right, I can do a copy as well. I don't have to move. So let me go back and cancel this. If I want to keep the message here, but I want to respond to it later, I can do rather than move, I should be able to do a copy. And I want to copy that to requires response, and then click OK. All right, and so now there are 7 messages there. If I click the requires response, it put the latest message here requiring a response, and I can mark that message as unread, and so that way, or I can tag it, put a color to it if I wanted to do that as well. In fact, I'll show you that. I can right click and I can tag this message and apply tags, or I can mark the message with a color label. In other words, like a green label, okay? And so if I click on another message, this now is a green message, which is telling me this is a message that needs to be responded to, okay? But when I marked it as unread, then it put it under this column here for unread messages, okay? And so that just lets me know there's something out there I need to respond to, all right? Let me see if I can move this over just a hair. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and so I can do that. Now, if I'm drafting a message, let me go ahead and do the compose. It brings up this compose screen. This is my signature, and that's coming from the hidden file that I edited, which is under my home directory in a hidden file called .signature. I'm going to go ahead and start typing Dan, and then I'll need to hit the tab key to bring up whichever email account that I want to choose, okay, which is set up in the address book. I want to select the Outlook and hit the enter key, and that puts the Outlook address in that field, okay, so that's where it's going to go. And I'm just going to put in another test and come tab down. This is another test message, okay. I can send this email right away, but here's a neat feature that's built into ClawsMail I want to show you. I can go up here and click Send Later. Okay, and what that does is it doesn't send the email out right away. It does not put the email in the outbox. Okay, but what it does do is it puts the email in the email queue. All right, and that email message sits there in the queue until I actually send it. All right, so the next time I hit the send button, all the messages that are in the queue are going to get sent. All right, and so I can actually send this message right away. If I've got multiple messages in here and I only want to send one and not all of them, then I just highlight the one I want to send, then hit send from the queue folder, and then that sends that message out only. Okay, so it's a pretty slick feature there. So let me demonstrate that going out. So if I hit send, send queued messages, send all queued messages, yes. So I'm going to send it, and it's going to send that email out. All right, and so now that queued folder is empty, and that should come into my email. I'm going to click Get Mail, and there it is, another test message. All right, and so I can select it and hit the HTML view here, and now I'm looking at that email in my HTML, rendered as HTML and not text. All right, one of the other things I want to demo here in ClawsMail is I want to, and by the way, ClawsMail takes up very little footprint, very little use of RAM. It's much better than Evolution Mail in that respect. Evolution Mail is pretty heavy-handed. ClawsMail is not. All right, so that's what I like about it. Let me go out to my Charter account at charter.net, and I want to send an email to my Dan Calloway account. I'll go ahead and select it. It's in the address book here. I want to select subject message from Charter account. This is an email sent from Charter account. All right, and then I want to insert the signature and send it. All right, so that goes out from my Charter account. Let me go back to ClawsMail, and since I've got this set up to only receive mail every 10 minutes, I need to hit Get Mail if I want it to be sooner. And so message from Charter account, there it is. Click on it, click on HTML rendered. There it is, HTML rendered. And so this is a great little email client. I highly recommend you to download ClawsMail and use it on your Linux system. If you're using Ubuntu, use the Synaptic Package Manager to make that installation. You can go up to ClawsMail's website if you're adventurous, and you can go over to the download or downloads, straight downloads. Here's the clawsmail.org. You can click here and you can download the source file and compile and make it if you want to. Don't advise that unless you know what you're doing in Linux, but it's doable. Okay, if you're using a Debian system, for instance, you're using OpenSUSE Leap 42.2 or 42.3, you're not going to be able to use Synaptic Package Manager because it doesn't exist. But there is another package manager called YAST, Y-A-S-T, stands for Yet Another Software Tool. You can launch your YAST package manager, go over to your applications, and search for Claws Mail, just like I did in the Synaptic Package Manager here on Ubuntu, and it will pull up what's available in the repository for Debian for OpenSUSE Leap 42.2 or 42.3 or Tumbleweed, and you'll be able to download that. Now the version may be a little bit different than what I'm running here. What I'm running here is, again, Claws Mail 3.13.2. Okay, in OpenSUSE it might be something different. It might even be later. It might be 3.14 dot something. Not really sure. But this has been a demonstration of Claws Mail. It's a lightweight email client, very friendly, user-friendly, very configurable. You can set up multiple accounts. You can set up IMAP as well as POP3. One that I highly recommend that you get. And so send me comments.